So we have a somewhat interesting development in a story that I have tried to kind of keep up with a little bit, that being the situation with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And Maxwell obviously was found guilty of essentially grooming victims for Jeffrey Epstein. And now I had mentioned, you guys, I'm going to take a tiny little bit of credit. I had mentioned that it was possible that they had so backed her into a corner that the only play she had left was to start giving names up, or at least threaten to. And it looks like she's at least threatened to, which I hope bears some fruit. I hope that we get some transparency about the powerful people involved in this horrific crime. This is in Insider. Ghislaine Maxwell ends fight to keep the names of 8 John Does a secret after Virginia Giuffre demands they be made public. Ghislaine Maxwell will no longer fight to keep the names of 8 John Does a secret. Lawyers for Virginia Giuffre, who have accused Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein of sex trafficking, have asked a judge to unseal material from an earlier civil lawsuit she filed against Maxwell. The lawsuit was settled in 2017, but Giuffre has fought for years to have material from it unsealed. The John Does will appear to be people who to be people who have stepped into the litigation over the years and asserted privacy rights for parts of the sealed material. In a letter Wednesday to Loretta Preska, the judge overseeing the case, Maxwell's attorney Laura Menninger said Wednesday that her client will leave it to the court to decide whether the name should be unsealed. Quote, each of the listed does have each of the listed does, that throws me a little bit. Each of the listed does has counsel who have ably asserted their own respective privacy rights, the letter submitted by Menninger said. The fact that Maxwell, a longtime associate of Epstein, who was convicted of 5 sex trafficking charges, is no longer opposing the unsealing does not necessarily mean that all names will be released. Preska will consider the arguments set forth by each of the anonymous John Does, which have been made in court filings that have not all been made public. A review of court filings from Mail Online found that 6 of the John Does have objected to unsealing court documents that would make their identities public. One of them, John Doe 17, wishes to keep their identity secret to avoid annoyance and embarrassment. The media outlet reported. How is that a legal argument? You don't want to be embarrassed by having some transparency around your crimes against children, for fuck's sake. Another, John Doe 151, said that the disclosure of his name would lead to him being hounded by the media, and added he wishes to maintain a private life. Don't we all? Yet when one engages in crimes against children, perhaps you deserve some hounding from the media. They're so fucking entitled, these powerful pricks. Following Maxwell's conviction on sex trafficking charges last month, Sigrid McCauley, one of Giuffre's attorneys in the case, said there was no longer any reason to keep the identities of the John Does. Now that Maxwell's criminal trial has come and gone, there is little reason to retain protection over the vast swaths of information about Epstein and Maxwell's sex trafficking operation that were originally filed under seal in this case, said McCauley, a Giuffre attorney, according to a letter seen by The Independent. The decision by Maxwell's legal team not to fight against the potential unsealing of name took place on the same day that a federal judge denied Prince Andrew's attempt to dismiss a lawsuit from Giuffre, who has also accused the royal of sexual assault. So looks like at least a little bit of rhetorical accountability for Prince Andrew, who did not manage to escape the lawsuit pertaining to his abuse of Giuffre. And Maxwell here now changing her position on the sealed names. So, I'm not optimistic necessarily that anything will come of this, because the judge still would have to rule in favor of Giuffre and against the John Does, and that's not necessarily the pattern that we tend to see, is it? But it's just interesting to me that Ghislaine has decided to kind of step out of the way and allow this to happen. And even if the court doesn't want to make the names public, Ghislaine knows them. If she's going to be in prison for the rest of her life, what's to stop her from just saying, hey, what reporter wants to come in and have a little chit chat? So, I mean, who knows how these names might get out? They could be leaked. Attorneys involved might grow a conscience and decide that they're responsibility to keep things secret be damned. This is a little bit more important. We need some transparency. We could find a whistleblower somewhere here at this point. So, I just don't want to let that story go, because it seems to me that the powerful have gotten away with an absolutely heinous crime. And I want to keep up on any sort of updates that might, in the slightest possible way, hold them to some sort of modicum of accountability. And hopefully this latest development leads to some of those names becoming public one way or the other.